Coming up next on this special Thursday night edition of the Journalists Roundtable, a budget standoff between Republicans in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. And Senate Democrats are apparently still at odds with each other. This after a coup attempt targeting leadership. It's a Thursday edition of the Journalists Roundtable next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight it's the Journalists Roundtable moved for this week only to Thursday night instead of its usual Friday night slot. And joining us tonight, Ben Giles of the Arizona Capital-Times, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal. A three-way standoff at the state capitol. Republicans in the House and Senate are at odds over budget priorities, and the governor suggests that any bills sent her way before a budget deal is reached will be sent back with a veto. Ben, it sounds like the kids aren't getting along.
Not at all today, actually, except maybe the House and the governor's office have some sort of agreement. This morning, Speaker Tobin and Governor Brewer had reached a consensus on a few changes, a couple of minor spending increases to the budget that the Senate passed on Tuesday, which took a big red pen to what the House had passed last week. They took that to Senate President Biggs. Understanding though, and as of the end of the day, there is no deal, there is no commitment from the Senate to take this deal, although the House did indicate that they have the votes necessary to pass it because they assigned some members to a conference committee to get together and settle this once and for all.
Well, of course, remember the conference committee is in fact pro forma. Negotiations go on outside the view of us pesky journalists here. Look, this is as close as they're going to get. We're talking rounding errors here. We're talking a $9.2 billion budget. And the last separation I saw between what the Senate was offering and the deal that Ben was talking about is $20 million.
$20 million, but there are certain things that still separate these folks. Things like, it seems as though things like charter schools, things like when are you going to fully fund CPS, these things, you talk about numbers, you're talking about issues here.
Yeah, CPS, charter schools are the big things, university funding, where that's going to come down. Where the governor's at on this. We're in April. We're not up against it yet. It's not 100 degrees yet. It's not towards the end of the fiscal year. So people have some time for things like this to fall apart when it's this early. That's why they're squabbling over, I think, so many little things. So you could see a deal like this that's close fall apart at the last second because they're not up against it yet.
But let's get serious here. We're talking about egos. We're talking about the Senate president saying, literally, I believe from his office here to saying, well, I haven't exactly seen what they want, and I want to see it in writing, and I want to see the speaker's 31 votes. The speaker is saying, we've given them most of what they've wanted. We've come down in our spending to close to what they wanted. Governor is mainly concerned about this commitment to CPS funding, and we're talking about whose egos, who blinks, who looks like they've won. And that's what this is all about. It's optics.
It's motivations too, right? You have the governor in her last term. So does she have senioritis yet? Or does she want to, or is she still the governor? This is one versus the whole legislature. You have a speaker who's running for Congress who would probably like to get out on the campaign trail and raise some money. And you have Andy Biggs, who's been probably the biggest adversary to the governor these past 2 years, and where the Medicaid fits in. And like Howie said, the ego fits in, and who's the most powerful and comes out of this going forward.
And who has the best leverage? The governor has to think about what she can do the most at what point in time in the negotiations, correct? Either now or later on, or perhaps even a special session.
Exactly, and that's particularly the case with this CPS issue, as the governor has a work group meeting on Fridays to try and create this new division of child safety and family services. There's language that they're haggling over in the budget that would determine when exactly, after a budget is approved, they could revisit the funding for that new agency, because the governor has said all along, we kind of have a guesstimate for how much money we think we're going to need to sever this agency from the Department of Economic Security, but we don't know exactly what it's going to need to get up on its own 2 feet properly. The concern is if they don't have enough funding to do it right at the start, that it's going to get dragged down and be a failure, just as CPS has been for so many kids.
And that goes to the issue of her legacy. This is her last term. She does not want to leave with us still writing stories in November about how the new agency has missed this many cases. She wants to make sure it has the funding. Now, Biggs's position has been, well, before we reform anything, he calls it a toes-to-nose examination of how CPS, the old agency, is functioning. Then we'll talk about the money. Well, the governor is not going to form an agency and say, oh, we'll work out the funding for it later. So we're down to verbiage. We're down to what all of us do in terms of coming up with the wording that keeps everyone happy and lets everybody think they've won.
But there are conservatives down there like Biggs who think government just throws money at problems and they don't think about what they're doing beforehand. So they have that legitimate concern from their perspective that we're going to create CPS. We've talked about this before, a new CPS, and they're just going to change the nameplate and the letterhead. And it's going to be the same problems. And we're going to put even more money towards it, and they're still not going to answer the phone.
Are there folks in the Senate, we obviously know what the Senate president thinks about all this, are there folks in the Senate who would like to go ahead and vote on this, would like to go ahead and get this done, but are afraid to either cross him or the caucus?
Absolutely. There are folks in the Senate who think there are 16 votes, 16 Republican votes for this budget today. We could have gotten finished today, but for whatever reason, be it the ego, be it posturing, this is getting dragged into next week. Monday is the earliest we can come back to address this. Maybe then Biggs assigns members to a conference committee and we move forward.
But I still think there's a lot of hurt feelings from the Medicaid thing on the conservative side. The people that are that conservative it's pure. You don't cross them on stuff, and they still remember that. I think that plays a role in the way the Senate's approaching
But
this.
they crossed Tobin, the Speaker of the House, as well, and he's apparently sitting down, negotiating, and getting things done.
He wants to be in Congress.
Well, that's
Well,
true.
but see, here's the other problem with putting it off. One of the things we've learned from being down there all these years is that once you've got something laying out there, somebody thinks of something else they want. I mean, for example, one of the things that apparently is out is chiropractic care for Medicaid recipients. Barry Aarons, who's the lobbyist for the chiropractors, is down there trying to work his little magic. We got the lobbyist down there, for the podiatrists doing the same thing, and they're each of them thinking they're going to get something in at the last minute.
Emergency dental care, don't forget that as well.
Emergency dental care, and again, so what we've got in there, we know we've got insulin pumps.
Yes.
Again, we're splitting the baby, so to speak, and trying to figure out how much money can we add to keep the moderates happy, to keep the governor happy. For example, the universities each are getting $2.5 million for ASU, $2.5 million for U of A, and then $500,000 for NAU. Now, is that a lot less than the governor requested? Sure, but it's twice as much as the Senate said they were willing to fund. So again, we're trying to move toward that center.
And the problem with that is, and this is what lawmakers are even telling the governor and telling Senate President Biggs today, trying to prod him forward and say, the longer you drag this out, there are going to be more complications, and they certainly don't want to be here another whole week haggling over this, haggling over issues like the chiropractic services, or haggling over district charter schools, and there were adjustments proposed to the university funding just this morning because Biggs had slashed that a little further earlier this week.
Well, with that in mind, Howie, I mean, we saw the picture of the Magnificent Seven walking there, the moderates or the breakaway group, and they were demanding this and demanding that. And are they getting? I mean, what came of all of that?
To a certain extent, I think that was more catharsis. They were frustrated. They needed to vent. What better way to vent than come over to the press room and say, "Do you know how we're getting screwed?" There's most of the charter school money for the district-run charter schools is back in there. The language on CPS is probably going to come around to something closer to what Kate Brophy-McGee wanted. Are they getting everything? No. But there's a lot of other folks who have their own wish list. I mean, one of the issues is, this whole Prescott fire protection.
Yes.
Does Prescott get saved from all the costs because they lost, 19 firefighters, and how does that affect, their insurance? Lots of little pieces.
Did that wind up in there? Because that was Senator Pierce. It did not.
I don't think it did. And what's interesting about that is that the House Speaker is from the Prescott area.
It was another one of those things that was sent back to the Senate, an addition from the House that Biggs cut, in addition to the chiropractic services, in addition to, you said it was $5.5 million for universities. That was slashed in the Biggs budget. And I think it does get back to egos at some point, particularly with those 6 holdout Medicaid expansion Republicans in the House. There are a lot of hurt feelings there, and they feel in some ways like they're being attacked by Senate President Biggs in this budget.
But here's the other half of the equation. Because of the fact that this House budget is less, this compromise budget is less than the House originally put out, that may keep the conservatives that Tobin has a little happier to say, look, we took some out. Now, there's some people in both the House and Senate who want to spend less than last year because we do have a structural deficit. We are still spending more than we're taking in. We're living off of what's left over from the sales tax. We're never going to get down to that.
And the president has mentioned we're not out of the woods yet. He's used that quote a couple of. When do you get it? When do the woods stop?
Well, I think folks on the right want to starve the beast. They don't see any kind of. They're inherently against a lot of spending, no matter what it's about. I think it comes down to how long Biggs can stand out for, how long he can hold out for on this, and how long the governor waits. The governor has the biggest stick in this. No matter anybody what the legislature wants to say on this, she has the one. She can stop any other bills, and as long as there's a lot of the bills people want to pass on taxes and other things, and so she has the power here. If she wants to exert that power, Biggs can hold out for a while, but I don't think he can hold out that much longer.
Now there's another piece to this equation. Everybody has been saying we're going to grow our way out of it. A series of tax cuts. We've cut corporate income tax rates by 25%. We've got R&D tax credits. Just today, the House approved $10 million in tax breaks for manufacturers and smelters and what they're paying in utilities. Now, if all that works and all this wonderful incentives work, we'll grow our way out of it. And so by FY17, instead of being in a deficit, maybe we'll have $12 million in revenues and that'll be the end of it. The Democrats are saying, not until you start addressing some of these tax cuts and whether they make sense, are we ever going to have a balanced budget.
And the Democrats are also saying that taxpayers have made it known they want things like state subsidized child care. They want things like highways to be improved. They want spending on at least certain things. And what they're saying is, the Senate president especially, but this budget in general, then address that stuff.
No, certainly not child care subsidies whatsoever. There's $130 million in the baseline for that working poor subsidy, but only $9 million of that actually comes from Arizona's general fund. The rest is federal grants. And the point that Senate President Biggs makes, and he actually mentioned to me this week, that the initial budget that he introduced before it was amended, even in his own chamber, spent $21 million less than the baseline. So you do still have these Republican lawmakers who, as Mike said, starve the beast. They think that's one of the best ways to get us out of the woods. And maybe that's a lack of confidence in some of the cuts that have been made already that maybe haven't worked fast enough.
Are you suggesting that they've decided the Laffer curve doesn't work?
We could have a $5 billion surplus, and they would not put money towards child care subsidies.
That's
because the Republican caucus and Republican primary voters aren't for those things.
But that's exactly contrary to what people like Kate Brophy are arguing. It says you want people to go to work. There are people who are working just above, welfare. You want them to go to work. You don't want them to leave the kids parked in the car. You don't want them to leave the kids at home. Well, you need to provide them with a little bit of help. And from the perspective of Kate Brophy McGee and Ethan Orr, this is a Republican program because it gets people to work and gets people paying taxes.
And it helps get CPS, or the new CPS, off on the right foot, because instead of actually sending children into the CPS system when, for example, that mother the other week who left her kids in her car to go in for a job interview, if she had some of this subsidy, she could have sent her kids to daycare instead. That will help reduce this ever-maintaining caseload.
But we're down to what Mike is saying. There are people who believe this is not the role of government. We have churches, we have charities, we have First Things First, and they can be doing that. Look, they're right to the extent there's never enough money to take care of everyone's needs and what everyone wants to do. Medicaid expansion is part of that. We're at 138% of the federal poverty level. But we have to decide as a society, what is the role of government?
And that, again, there are concerns out there from folks from the social service agencies. They're saying, you keep worrying about CPS or whatever you're going to call it next. Why not address the issues that lead people to having to go to a CPS, that lead children in this direction, as opposed to always fighting something after the event?
Well, I think we got some indication of how Senator President Biggs at least feels about this in a little bit of a philosophical debate that occurred on the Senate floor on Tuesday. Himself and Senator Farley were talking about what the role of government is. And you had the Senate President say, government is not compassionate, government does not have empathy, that's left up to the individuals. And that's why you hear the arguments for religious institutions to sort of pick up the slack and help provide these
it goes beyond that.
services.
Part of that debate was that government takes money out of your pocket to give away to someone else. Well, okay, that's what, do you want a road? Do you want a fire department?
We're discussing social contract here. It's like we're in a high school civics class.
Well, it is cultural too, because a lot of the members down there are LDS, Mormon, and they have their own social welfare system set up. They have the pantries, they have you're in trouble, you're part of the church, you can go there and take advantage of that. So they kind of come from that perspective. They see their church and their community doing that. I do think that impacts how they view some of the social spending from the public sector.
Yeah, but those things still exist in a wider view. They don't exist in a vacuum, as Howie mentioned. They do use the roads, they do use the services. I mean,
although
and we're all there.
You have people, look, there are folks who say maybe all highways should be toll roads, user fees. Of course, I would make the argument the user fees is what isn't that what my gas tax is paying for? Mm-hmm. You mean the gas tax they're siphoning off to balance the budget and pay the DPS salaries? You can go down a rabbit hole.
We have a legislature that the first place they raise money every time is that highway fund. That is the first place they go. They take that money out of that. And so even something like that, which a lot of conservatives believe roads, public safety are things that government should be doing, that's the first place they raid.
One of the big headlines out of all this was this all of a sudden $900,000 for private prisons that no one, I think even the private prisons were a little surprised about. Is that still around? Is that still alive? Is that still possible?
That has been cut out of the Senate version of the budget that passed on Tuesday. That was an addition, I believe it was from Representative Stevens in the House that stuck, and that was swiftly removed in the Senate budget.
Well, what you had is GEO Group, the state has a contract for emergency beds. Now, everything's been an emergency since we don't have enough private prisons. John Kavanaugh's argument is, look, they agreed to a really cheap rate back when we started running into problems in 2009. And that if we had to pay in the full rate, it would be $4 million, $5 million. So this is a great deal at $900,000, except for the fact Department of Corrections didn't ask for the money. And is this the way we negotiate contracts? Well, if they want something different, then come and negotiate.
Where was the debate on this?
Debate?
Debate.
You've obviously been reading too many civics books.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is how the whole budget gets put together. If you take a look at the package of the bills there, you not only have these line items in there, you have these budget reconciliation bills that they put in these little policy lines there, and that's how things happen in the state.
It was a rhetorical question.
It's very much like happens in Congress. We say, how did we get this?
Well, you'll likely see private prison money back in the next budget, whenever next year, but you're going to have a new governor. So, who knows who that governor is going to be. They could be a lot less friendly towards private prison. But you see this in the budget process, these kind of conservative experiment issues, charter schools, private prisons. Obviously, they go down the social issues with the other bills, and that's always as part of the budget debate is these kind of moving the conservative experiments forward.
The right kind of charter schools. Make sure that they're not district-run charter schools where the money could be spread somewhere where it's not supposed to go.
Of course, right.
Okay. Monday, you think something could break here?
Perhaps at least that's when we're all scheduled to come back to work. But Monday, I think. By the end of the weekend, Biggs should have some idea. Hopefully, maybe a list of names, if Speaker Tobin hasn't given it to him yet, of here's the 31 people who are going to vote for this budget as I've proposed.
Monday.
Again, the only thing that I'm afraid of is folks are going to go home for the weekend and they're going to wake up Monday morning and say, I need a little bit more in the budget, and that's what scares the heck out of me.
That's what happens when you wait too long. All right, real quickly here. There seem to be, as the Republicans are simply just fighting amongst themselves and the Democrats are watching from a distance, apparently Democrats didn't have enough to do.
No, they got into a nice little fight of their own this Tuesday. Right after the budget was passed on the Senate floor, they held a closed-door caucus meeting that was supposed to just sort of be a kumbaya session, actually, where you had one lawmaker, Senator Carlisle Begay, upset over accusations that he might vote for a Republican budget. He wanted to talk about that. They wanted to talk strategy about why, once again, are we in this position where we have no say in the budget whatsoever? And it kind of snowballed into this discussion about Republican leadership, which is pretty new. 5 months ago, you had a vote that ousted Senator Leah Landrum Taylor and her leadership team. That was a contentious vote, and there's still hurt feelings from that. So you had that same contingent, Cajero Bedford, Bradley, Leah Landrum Taylor, voting to try and get rid of Senator Anna Tovar and her leadership team. And I think Senator Steve Gallardo put it best, it was silly because they didn't have the votes to do it.
Well, and I think the concern was Leah Landrum Taylor, the criticism there was you might not be around enough because you're running for a state office. And Gallardo apparently now has been absent because he's running for a for a congressional office, and they're saying, well, what's going on here?
And now Tovar, I think, is running for the Board of Supervisors because Mary Rose is going out. Look, you're always going to have folks running. It's going to sound snarky to say it doesn't matter. They're the Democrats. It's not like there were days years ago where you actually formed coalition governments where there were enough crazy Republicans so the Republican leadership would work with the Democrats. They don't matter. They really don't.
Once
they don't
in a
need
blue
the
moon they
Democrats.
matter. I mean,
Yeah.
once in a blue moon.
The Medicaid thing.
once in
Yeah,
a blue
well,
moon.
you're right.
Right, but the point that that Democrats were making, and I think any Republican would tell you as well, is that the whole reason Democrats had a voice in the budget negotiations last year wasn't because of leadership, wasn't because of Democratic leadership and their strength. It was because of the Medicaid expansion issue, and because of Governor Brewer reaching out to them.
Well, it's hard to herd cats that way. I mean, they're like Civil War reenactors. Why do you get to be Stonewall Jackson? It's all fake. Why am I an infantryman? They don't really do anything. And you're right, it's all about issues. They might come together with a Republican moderate or governor once every 3 or 4 years and do something, but they don't have enough critical mass down there to block anything. And there's nobody. Now, if that could change next year if you have a Scott Smith who's kind of more moderate winning the governor's race. Obviously, if Fred Duvall wins, you could see Democrats have a place. But the way things are set up now, they don't have anything.
Well, but the other issue is, there have been times, look, Democrats have been minority in the House since '66. Senate, they've taken over a few times. The issue is, how do you present your programs? The problem is the Democrats have spent too much time in the minority. All they're doing is shooting. And what we need is somebody say, okay, here's a plan. And the Democrats haven't figured it out. They're fighting with themselves. They're trying to figure out what their message is. You've got people who enjoy the sound of their own voice getting up on the Senate and House floor, and nobody is saying, here's the Democrat plan.
And yet, you say that after you say it really doesn't matter all that much. If it doesn't matter all that much, what are you holding the meeting for to say how can we become more involved when it's quite obvious you're not going to be involved?
Well, let's remember that the meeting was called by a pretty rookie senator at this point. Senator Begay was appointed to replace Jack Jackson last year. So this is his first session, and maybe he has some, I think, cockeyed optimism is what Senate President has liked to say lately.
Well, the other thing is there is a history in the House and Senate of the Navajo representative sometimes being bought off for certain things, new buildings, new roads up there. So maybe that was part of what he needed to do.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. Charles Keating Jr. Howie, we had, oh my goodness, we've talked about this for a little bit yesterday. We had Michael Manning on, and what a character this guy was.
Certainly. I mean, this is a guy who came out of Ohio, was known for forming Citizens for Decency Through Law, came out here and made a name for himself in a couple of ways. Lincoln Savings. This is the days when there were things as savings and loans, which were not governed by those same pesky rules and assets things. It was almost a precursor of what happened with the bank meltdowns. And we're selling, if you will, worthless securities. The other thing he did is he managed to push his will on how water law and real estate development is in this town. Do you want to know why we have lakes out at Estrella, even though we have a groundwater code?
Dobson Ranch.
Charlie Keating.
Yep.
It's all his. I mean, then of course the politics of it, we all remember, I don't know how many remember, the Keating Five, DeConcini and McCain, who thought they were just doing a favor for a nice local developer, till all of a sudden it came out, well, what exactly are you doing for this and how are you getting paid back?
Well, it ended DeConcini's career, right? And that brought us John Kyle, and that probably had a big impact on Democrats in the state going forward. McCain vacationed with him, was pretty tight with him, and he actually came out of that the best and kind of changed his tune and became a kind of an advocate for campaign finance reform. And the other, Cranston and John Glenn basically saw their careers done from that. I didn't know he was 6'5". Beanpole is the New York Times.
Well, the funny thing is, people were talking. They saw him at Cardinal games. Yeah. He went to Cardinal games.
Paradise Valley Mall.
And I remember seeing him in the concourse, and you could recognize him immediately. He was the tallest guy in the crowd. Walking around, just kind of looking. Is Charles Keating a major figure in this day and age if he arrives now, or is he just another face in the crowd?
I think it's harder because you don't have, there was a much smaller group of players. I mean, even going back to days of the Phoenix 40, where you had a few business leaders, the old Valley Bank, First Interstate Bank, a few major developers. Now it's just much more spread out. Obviously, though, if you come in here with a lot of money,
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can do.
All right, gentlemen, great conversation. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Friday on Arizona Horizon, it's a literary special featuring bestseller Bill Bryson talking about his latest work, which chronicles the eventful summer of 1927. And we'll speak with Care of the Soul author Thomas More, who discusses his new book on creating a religion of one's own. That's Friday on Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.